listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoza and Matt Polachek, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to another edition of Answers for the Family. I'm your host, Alan Cardoza, and I'm getting feedback. Sorry. For those of you that have been listening, sending in questions and comments, thank you so much. And please continue to help spread the word that every Monday from 11 a.m. to noon Pacific time, this show will bring on special guests that can inspire, educate, and in some cases entertain, while bringing answers and options and making our lives happier, healthier, and more successful. And I want to remind all of you that you can do me a huge favor. Please forward one of our shows to your social media group or to someone that you know can benefit from a particular show. Now, Answers for the Family will continue to address a variety of issues, such as locating a runaway teen, family crisis intervention, building self-esteem, dealing with addictions, and so much more. And we will introduce you to talented authors and new innovations in the areas of health, security, and fun for you and your family. Now, our topic today is defending religious freedom, parental rights, and other civil liberties, and doing it without charge. Now, before I bring on our guest, I did a little research into a few of the cases our guest has been involved in, and because of his organization, a kindergarten child was able to sing a song in the school talent show that had the verse, "Our God is mercy," in it. A small church that was feeding the homeless that were congregating in one particular area of a city was able to remain open and continue to feed those homeless people. And a number of people from a variety of cultures have been able to remain in the United States, and they were escaping religious persecution from the country that they came here from. So, and I want everybody to know that that really just scratches the surface of the many cases, both high profile and ones that aren't, ones that you don't read about in the paper. But they have assisted, all of them, in helping people understand and maintain their rights. And they've done so through love, compassion, and inclusiveness. Now, our guest today, Brad Dacus, served as legislative assistant to the U.S. Senator Bill Graham. And he went on to receive his Juris Doctorate from the University of Texas School of Law. For the next 5 years, Mr. Dacus coordinated religious freedom and parental rights cases throughout the western states. In 1997, Mr. Dacus founded the Pacific Justice Institute, where he serves as president and continues to defend the religious liberties and parental rights. The Institute has a network with hundreds of volunteer affiliate attorneys that handle cases throughout the West Coast, as well as other organizations. They've done more cases than on the West Coast than any other organization of its kind. So Brad can be heard weekly on the Dacus Report on 103 radio stations across the country. He has been a guest speaker on numerous radio and television programs. He participates weekly in several radio talk show interviews like this one, and has appeared on America Live, CBS Evening News, CNN, Dateline NBC, Good Morning America, MSNBC, The Today Show, The O'Reilly Factor, and that's just to name a few. Now, Brad was presented with an honorary doctorate of religious freedom and family rights degree from California Baptist University in recognition of his commitment to faith and justice and his work protecting parental rights and religious freedom through the Pacific Justice Institute. Brad, welcome to Answers for the Family.
Oh, it's great to be in the program, Alan. Thank you.
Well, Brad, it is great to have you, having heard you speak and then followed up and looked into all of the really great things that you're doing for people to help them maintain their rights. I just felt the need to have you on here. So, but let me get it from you. Why is it that you believe that the Pacific Justice Institute is so important to religious families today more than any other time?
Well, without question, the challenges to the traditional family out there is nothing compared to what it's been in the past on so many different fronts, whether we're talking about zealous social workers taking children for no reason at all or for the wrong reason, and we can talk in more detail about that and how parents can protect themselves, versus all the way to public schools in terms of both the curriculum and the agendas and what's being taking place there, and then violating parental rights. Even in terms of charter schools, we've seen it, unfortunately. And even the rights of homeschoolers being challenged. So there's so many different angles by where parents' rights are being violated, where they're being challenged. New pending legislation, for example, on the homeschooling front. So there's so many things that we're involved in. And some organizations will, I know, recently just said, we're just going to do religious freedom, because the parents' rights is too controversial or for whatever reason. We at Pacific Justice, we go full steam ahead. Whether it's controversial or not, if it's violating the rights of parents, violating religious freedom, or violating the sanctity of human life, we'll step into the ring robustly to address it, because that's what we need to do, particularly since the bulk of our work is on the West Coast, where it's by far the most intensive on these issues. However, I do want to say that our attorney network is all across the United States. So if there's anyone listening to this program in Maine or Florida or Texas or wherever, they should also not hesitate to contact us for free legal assistance. We do all our work without charge.
Yeah, and that was one of the things, again, as I was going through and checking out some of the cases, and I realized that there were people in many different states that were providing testimonials and such, saying that this is something that changed their life, or it changed the entire structure of their city because of the fact that the one where they talked about being able to feed the homeless. So yes, I'm glad that you added that. You mentioned in the beginning of this in regards to children being taken away by social services, and I wanted to share a story. I had spoken with this parent recently, and when they heard you were going to be on the show, they actually asked me to share this story, although I was present. So this was a few years ago where, as an investigator, I located a 15-year-old runaway girl who had run from the Los Angeles area. We had located her in a San Francisco shelter, and we had tracked her through her 23-year-old boyfriend, who had spent time in jail for dealing drugs to the high school that she went to. Once we located them, we had the mother brought up there as well, and with the girl's mother and all custody documents with us, we went to the shelter and spoke to the director there and said, that this is the mother. The mother would like her daughter to now come with her and to be able to keep her away from this other guy. The director of the shelter said that they needed to contact Child Protective Services to make sure that this was okay, and we were fine with that because we thought there shouldn't be any problem. Well, prior to Child Protective Services' arrival, the director of the shelter took the 15-year-old girl into a separate room and advised her that if she tells Child Protective Services that she's abused at home, that she won't have to leave with us. Well, the girl asked, what if that's not true? And the shelter director said, you'll have to leave with them and you'll never see your boyfriend again. Well, the girl told the lie, and we were sent away. And 2 younger children were removed from the family home, only to be returned weeks. Yeah, they were eventually all returned weeks later to the family when the girl recanted the story and admitted that she had been coached by that director of the shelter to lie. And the first thought that I had was, I wish I had known about the Pacific Justice Institute then, as this client that I recently talked to, or who was a client again years ago. When she heard you were going to be on the show, she asked me to tell the story, and that's what she said. She said, I wish that I would have known about Pacific Justice Institute. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. It's so classical. We hear stories of things that have happened, injustices in the past, because they didn't know that we were here to help them without charge, dealing with social workers. And as far as this place where she went, I hope they were exposed. I hope they just weren't able to continue operating, given that it was exposed that they encouraged her to lie. And yet, when you have entities that are receiving money, particularly receiving money per child that's in their care, there is an incentive to lie, for them to encourage these things and to be deceitful. And that's part of our problem with social workers in general in California in particular, because they get about $8,000 per head, per child that they take per year, that they keep the child away from the family. It's a really diabolical system. And yes, there are some children who definitely need to be rescued when you have parents into drugs, responsibility to drugs or alcohol. There is intervention needed in some of these circumstances, or actual sexual child abuse. But the majority of the time, children should not be taken. Studies show. There was one that came out by the Department of Health and Human Services that said that most children should, if they're in a moderately abusive family, they should remain in the family, because when the children are put in foster care, studies show that they're usually worse off in their development, health, safety, etc.
Yeah, and I know some of the things that we end up dealing with that makes matters even worse is there are people out there that prey on and exploit those young people when they get out of those programs. They literally know when they're getting out, and then they exploit them, and they offer them jobs that are non-existent, and before you know it, they're now involved in some form of human trafficking or some form of exploitation. Yeah.
Right. And I think something there's a number of resources we're going to be announcing, we're giving away in this show today. The first that I want to let people know about that they can take advantage of right now, they can order from our website under resources. It's an article. It's entitled 12 Steps to Protect Your Children from CPS, from being taken by social workers. It's 12 Steps to Protect Your Children from CPS, Child Protective Services. So it's an excellent article that every family who has children, if you're a grandparent, give it to your kids for them to be aware of. But every mom and dad in America should have this and should know it, because there are so many children now being taken from not just your stereotypical bad family, poor, tough, rough neighborhood. No, it's also families in nice suburban neighborhoods, rural neighborhoods. So they need to have this. It's a wonderful resource, and they can download it for free from our website, which is pji.org. That's P for Pacific, J for Justice, I for Institute.org, pji.org.
That's great, and I'm glad that it's very simple. As you were saying that, I was about to spell out all of it. So that's great. And I want to share something, because I know people like to, and they'll listen to things and sometimes take things out of context. And nobody here is saying that everybody that's involved with Child Protective Services or anything are trying to do wrong, or they're not trying to do a good job and things like that. I think what it is, and in the story that I just said, is that the Child Protective Service people that showed up, they were told a lie. The problem in that situation was that person who, as you said, is a shelter that gets a certain amount of money per child that they have in there. So there's a financial, monetary interest in getting them to say something that keeps them in there. So, but yeah, I just want to cover that. This is not attacking the entire CPS system, but in some situations they're operating with the information that's provided them, or have, in some cases, certain biases or something that
And now I want to point to something else too, is that a lot of these social workers, I mean, they all think they're doing the right thing. I mean, they all think, oh yes, this is good. I mean, just about all of them, good heart. But some of them are given the wrong information, and others have like you said, a bias. Many people who are social workers because they themselves were abused. Mm-hmm. And so they have a heart to help prevent kids from being abused. Well, the problem with that psychologically is they oftentimes carry out and live through that child what they went through, and they assume the worst. They assume that the child has the same dad that they had or didn't have. And it carries out a lot of these presumptions, and they fish for it zealously to interviewing that 5-year-old or 7-year-old to get this information that they're looking for, that they want to pull as they relive their own background to that child who may have a totally different family background, different dad, a different mom. So it's just the reality of what we have, and and we just need to be aware that it is what it is. And also people need to be aware they're taking children for different reasons now, including not only just taking them for just because the children are maybe not in the best situation, but also because the children are perhaps the child's come out and has declared that they're gay, or that they have a new gender identity and they want to change their gender. In some states like California, that's now grounds to take a child from parents. If the parents don't affirm it and say, "Oh, this is wonderful. Yes, we're going to help you change your gender, Johnny, to be a Jill or a girl. Yeah, we're going to." Or it comes out, she says she's she's gay, lesbian. Oh yeah, we're going to affirm it. If they don't do that, they don't affirm it. That is now grounds to have children removed. We had two scenarios where we had to deal with the emergency crises situations last year to keep a child from being taken in both of those scenarios. So it is getting more diabolical in how it's being implemented. And once again, they think they're doing the right thing, but in reality, it's statistically a very sorrowful, if not deadly or fatal scenario in the end. It needs to be parents need to be aware of this, and we give counsel to parents in those situations on how to keep their kids from being taken. And that article, once again, on 12 Steps to Protect Your Children, can be downloaded, and we address that on our website. They can download that for free.
Well, and while we're talking about situations with children, we have a question that is coming in from a listener. This one reads, "Our 14-year-old child has been diagnosed with autism. We are at our wits' end trying to handle him at home, as since the beginning of puberty his condition has worsened. We have requested through the IEP process a residential treatment facility that specializes in working with autistic children. The school district continually refuses our request and offers short-term Band-Aid treatment locally in an obvious attempt to save money. Is this the type of case you take on? And if not, what can we do, as we feel that the district will do this until he's 18 and then wash their hands of us?"
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we don't take on these kind of cases as far as case-wise. We do give counsel to parents as to their rights. For example, in California, individuals in the circumstances, they have a right to have an IEP program. It's a program for special needs kids, and it needs to be a program that meets the needs of that child. So what we often do, we advise parents to do, when they see a school district that's just sort of halfway doing, just doing the minimal, that they have the child examined by a psychiatrist, an expert, educational psychiatrist, someone along those lines, that has a real keen expertise in this area with a clear recommendation as to what the child needs, and then forward that to the school district. And if the school district doesn't carry it out, as the psychiatrist has, the expert educational psychologist has stated, then what they can do is they can then file that an administrative appeal to the school board and to the school district, and if the school district doesn't respond appropriately, then they have grounds to file an action in court. Oftentimes, when they get that expert opinion from the outside, they know their goose is cooked, and they will step up to do either one of two things: either one, change the IEP to provide for the needs of a child, or two, if they fail to do so, under law they're required to financially pay the parents to a voucher to put the child in another school, perhaps a private institution, that can meet those needs. It's their obligation, one way or the other, to make sure that child is taken care of and that they have an equal opportunity for the fullest development that they can in as far as education.
Yeah, and again, for those listening out there, and for the parent that sent this question in, that is right on target, and it's an area that I have a little bit of knowledge of because we contract with the school districts, and there are excellent advocates and there are excellent educational consultants that Brad was just referring to that specialize in that and that can really help. So again, great question, and thank you, Brad. That's something that we hear quite often from parents that just, as this one says, are at their wits' end. So now, while we're talking about public schools, I know there's a lot of other issues other than just some of the special needs kids. So share with us a little bit, why it's so important now to protect our children in in the public schools?
Sure. You know what? When I went to when I was in public school, you know, some are better than others. Parents didn't have to worry about sexual material being promoted that was totally in violation of the traditional or mainstream beliefs of parents. You know, mainstream mom and dad, they don't want their children engaging in sexual activities with same sex or the opposite sex, for that matter. They want them to exercise self-control. They understand that, you know, as parents, they even if they didn't, they would look back and they realize all the problems, medical, psychological, emotional, that children go through and all the pain they go through. So the problem, though, is today public schools are very, very different. They're dominated by the teachers' union, a very liberal institution, the NEA or the state union chapters. And those unions have an agenda, a very zealous agenda, working with institutions like Planned Parenthood, promoting abortion, promoting free sex. And then we have a real loose sexual agenda that's being pushed by public school teachers. And you've got some, good public school teachers out there, but they're outnumbered by these agendas. And then we have the textbooks themselves and the curriculum material, where you have mandatory by law in states like California, where children are taught all the way down to the kindergarten level about gender identity dysphoria, where you have a man who says he's a female, and so they have them brought into class. We had Redwood Heights Elementary up in Oakland did this to first graders and second graders. Two transgenders came into class telling the kids you can be a boy on the outside, a girl on the inside, you can be both or different or nothing. And it was just so inappropriate for the development of these children. And that's happening at a very fast clip. The public school textbooks, the history, sociology books are all required to have gay and transgender role model icons. The new agenda coming out, when they have LGBT month, every day they focus on a role model who's a gay, transgender, and they're often really terrible role models in terms of their criminal backgrounds and other histories. It's very alarming. On our website, in fact, another resource you can download, you can take a look at that material for that month and the different examples of the ones that are being pushed out to kids. Extremely alarming, and parents their jaws would drop if they're aware of that. They look under go to our website pji.org and look under resources, and there they can download that whole material. Something else they can download too, which is real important, are opt-out forms. It's not going to totally protect the children from the indoctrination, the heavy LGBT indoctrination in our public schools, or the loose sexual promiscuity being promoted, but it will limit them from special presentations that are pushing these agendas and instruction that is so diametrically opposed to mainstream American families. And the opt-out form, we have one for all 50 states and also one for specific states. They go to our website, pji.org, look under resources, and then click that. It's at the top, resources, and they can download that as well. The opt-out form is very, very helpful. Every family who has a child in a public school definitely needs to fill out this opt-out form. We'll work with them. It's all without charge, and then have that filed and sent to the school district.
Yeah, and to me, what you're talking about when you use the word indoctrination, and I'm of the belief that we as parents, we have rights, and that we have a way in which we believe it is going to be the best, the safest, the most loving to raise our children. And if there is if there's a gay couple and they want to raise their child and they want to teach them those things, that's fine. That's great. I don't think that there should be any type of indoctrination on any subject. I don't think we should be doing it from a sexual standpoint, and I don't think that we should be doing it from a political standpoint. That's not the place of the school. The school is a place to be able to educate them and not focus on a type of indoctrination because you want them to think or believe a particular way. So yes,
exactly.
So and it sounds like the opt-out form is one of the steps that will help that.
Yeah, it'll give some protection, some shielding, But parents also need to be aware if they have their children in public schools, particularly in school districts that are giving into these agendas, like the whole state of California, for example, is totally into all the textbooks using states using California textbooks, which a good number of them do. We'll also have this all throughout the grade levels. But they need to be aware that this at least is something they can do to help them, but they also need to be aware that these school districts are really pushing things, the teachers are pushing it zealously, unapologetically, and even outright being harassing of kids from mainstream values that are different than these extreme agendas, radical agendas that the teacher may be pushing in the classroom. And we encourage students when they see teachers out there saying something outrageous, attacking people of faith, saying things that are just totally the average parent would object to, take out their cell phone, stick on the record volume, and hold it so we can hold those teachers accountable. And that's been very effective sometimes.
Oh, good. Now, I was someone who was a room parent, and so I was very involved in the school. And at the time in which I signed up for it, the form actually said room mom, and I signed it. And then when they announced who the room parents were going to be, the teacher said, and by the way, we're going to change the form to parent from mom because we have Mr. Cardoza. It wasn't my goal to get them to change the form, but it was my goal to be involved and to see what it is that's going on and how I can be of service. And so share with a little bit about what parents can do from the standpoint of volunteering and being involved so that they can not only see what's going on, but have some input.
Oh, yes. I think that is so exemplary what you decided to do. It is, parents can complain from the outside. They can we had, two grandparents demonstrating in front of a high school once, and they called me and said, oh, it was terrible. People were screaming at us. I said, well, why don't you try a more constructive approach and be a teacher's aide, volunteer to be a teacher's aide?
Yeah.
Because when you volunteer to be a teacher's aide, you're in the classroom. Several things take place. Number one, you have direct hands-on as to exactly what's happening. Number two, the teacher knows that you're there and have a heads-on on exactly what's being said and what's happening. So there's an inherent protective measure that takes place there. And then also, you're able to actually have a positive influence by establishing a relationship with that teacher, maybe to sensitize that teacher to things that she may be saying or doing that she may not even be aware of. Terminology she's using, like, those people who believe that homosexual conduct is gay marriage is wrong, or just homophobes. You say, hey, that's really a term that is and used to have a term that's really hostile and harassing for kids who come from religious families who have different beliefs. You really might want to think twice about using that term because it's very disrespectful to those kids who think differently, have families that have different mainstream beliefs or traditional beliefs. And that's a form you have as a teacher's aide.
Yeah, and that's just what I was going to say, which works both ways, because however it is that you're presenting things, if you present it in an inclusive rather than a divisive way and say, that we as a country have some differences of opinion. We can look at things, but if we can all sit down and have a reasonable discussion about it, as opposed to demonizing, we're going to get a lot further. So I love the fact that you're saying is be there in there, be a role model. That's part of it, is just to be in there and to be who it is that you are. And not only can possibly the teachers or the kids learn some things from us, but we're going to learn some things from them. I can tell you that when I first did this, the kindergarten teacher there was so focused on approaching things, and she said to me one time, rather than draw attention to, let's say, Johnny who's not listening and playing with something he's not supposed to, she would put her focus on Kathy, who was over there sitting right in front of the reading table with her legs crossed and her hands on her lap, ready to go. And it's, where are you going to put your focus? Are you going to put your focus on the negative thing, because that's what you're going to get more of, or are you going to focus on some of the positives? And so there's so much I think we all can learn by all of us being involved in that process.
Right, and also a teacher's aide can also serve as a watchdog for other parents who can't be in school, who don't know what's going on. They can speak out at school board meetings and say, "This is what's happening. This is what I've seen." Even form a parents organization, and not a PTA, but a true parents organization, and relay that information, or relay it at the PTA meeting. So yeah, it's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Another resource we have I think is very helpful is on the proactive side. It's a book. It's called Reclaim Your School, and people can download this for free also from our website. We've had it printed a number of times, and now it's just a free download. It talks all about how parents, students, teachers, school board members, and others can have a positive, proactive impact in terms of faith in the schools that is respectful of children of different faiths, but at the same time allows the faith to flourish in a very positive, constructive way for kids who do have faith in that school district, attending that public school. It's got everything in there has been it's tested, it's proven. There's different chapters for different purposes. People like the school board member, the teacher, the parents, the students, the youth minister, clergy. So it's a very positive, very proactive, and we strongly encourage parents who want to have a real difference, positive difference, to go to their website and take a look. Take a look at. Also, we mentioned a number of different organizations and ministries that they can link up to at the end in the appendix to have a positive impact on their schools in so many different ways. Groups that they can work with them and help them and assist them, so they don't go it alone. It's highly recommended, and once again, it's free download to all your listeners if they go to our website and just click resources at the very top. And the book is called Reclaim Your School. Reclaim Your School.
All right, and the website for that again is pji.org. Now, our topic today is defending religious freedom, parental rights, and other civil liberties without charge. We are talking to Brad Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break. Stay with us, but if you want to follow along with us, go to pji.org. You can follow along, open up another window. Obviously, if you're driving, don't try this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Founded over 30 years ago to meet the needs of families in crisis, West Shield has continually focused on resolving issues that negatively impact families and businesses. Our signature therapeutic transportation service helps to ensure that adolescents in crisis are safely transported to specialized schools, programs, and treatment centers with unsurpassed experience and success. We are supported by our full-service licensed investigation agency that has legally, professionally, and compassionately located hundreds of runaways and teens. We are experienced and qualified to help, offering solutions which may include referrals to our international network of top professionals in the fields of educational consulting, psychology, psychiatry, and investigations. Simply put, West Shield Adolescent Services and West Shield Investigations are the best solutions when your family is facing a personal crisis. Call 1-800-899-8585. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 1-800-899-8585. Or visit our website at westshield.com. Thank you.
And we're back. You're listening to Answers for the Family. Our guest is Brad Dacus of the Pacific Justice Institute, and we are talking about defending religious freedoms, parental rights, and other civil liberties. Now, Brad, we have another question that's coming in from one of our listeners, and this one reads, our 10-year-old has struggled in school socially and academically, and although we are Christians, some of her schoolmates are ruthlessly mean because we are of Islam descent. Despite a school anti-bullying policy and our best efforts to work with teachers, nothing has changed. We can't afford private school, and my husband and I are working full-time jobs and can't be home to do homeschooling. I am upset that her school is not really taking this bullying issue seriously and wanted to know what do you suggest we do?
Wow, yeah, that's a real tough situation they're in because both are working. So homeschooling is not an option. They could try to transfer their child out of that public school and put their child in a charter school that is more sensitive to oppose bullying. No child, for any reason, whether because of their faith or their family background or their or whatever, should ever have to be bullied. And yet bullying is so common, and particularly the elementary school level, where kids are attacked for being different. And so it's, I think they need to look at their educational options. Charter school, they can possibly have their child transferred to another perhaps another school in that particular school district. They can also appeal this matter, have a written complaint citing specifically, this is what's happening, this is what we were told, this is what happened again on this date. My child said this, then we called and complained again. Just keeping a running journal, if you will, as to what's happening when and when the complaint was made, nothing was done, and then have that filed in writing with the school district, and with a copy sent to the superintendent and the school board members, and ask what actions are going to be taken to help protect your child. Now, in schools, I want a little caveat: children are allowed to share their faith, to talk about their faith. That's not bullying. That's not harassment. In fact, that's protected in the Tinker v. Des Moines Unified School District case. But when they start to name call and they start to treat a child, differently because of their faith, that is not protected in free speech, and school districts need to be very sensitive and responsive to that in the proper way. And that's also doesn't mean they come back and they demean a child who's Jewish or Christian or Hindu of a different faith. They also have to be very sensitive not to swing the pendulum the other direction. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah, and in this situation, they say that they're Christians, but they are of Islam descent. So it's very possible that there are people that are assuming that they are Muslim. If this situation is such that, because it doesn't go into too much detail as to what the bullying is happening to them, but if the bullying is attacking them, assuming that they are Muslim, what are some of the things that the parents can do to make sure that stops?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like, because I didn't get the part that they were Christian. I thought they were from, you said, Muslim descent. So I thought they were. Yeah,
but that's why I thought it was being attacked. Yeah. So
are they being attacked because of their ethnicity then? Because if it's clear the child's not Muslim. I don't think it's clear, and I think what it says is that it says, although we're a Christian, some of her schoolmates are ruthlessly mean because of our descent. Our descent. Maybe maybe Arabic descent, or maybe the parents.
Islamic descent. Yes.
Yeah, maybe the parents. Maybe the child comes from that cultural background. Like I said, they need to put their complaints in writing. Start first with the principal, keep a journaling of it, and then the superintendent. And I think that's a good thing to do. I know if I had a child who people thought that he was Muslim, or maybe he told it, that my parents used to be Muslim and now we're Christians or whatever. He's free to wear a cross if he wants around his neck. That's one way of helping to disparage those who are spreading false rumors. But no child should have to even do that, right, to prevent from being bullied. No child should be bullied. So I know as a parent that's something I would do. But more importantly is to address the issue of just kids bullying in general, and children are protected to not to have to do that. But parents need to not just talk to the teacher. They need to keep a journaling. They need to put in writing the complaint with the specifics, what was said, the date that it was said, and just go up the ladder. Start with the teacher, then the principal, and then file a complaint with the school board, the administration, the superintendent, and really try to address it. But kids can be mean, And also, that's why I think also parents might just want to consider pulling their child from that school and see if they can place their child in a different public school or charter school program. That should also be probably something they should consider.
And I'm very pro charter school. So yeah, I think if they get that opportunity, I would jump on it in a minute.
They just need to be careful as to what charter school they're putting their kids in, because some of them they're all through the whole spectrum as far as ideology, agendas. So parents, I'm very positive with that alternative. The parents still need to really be very careful and really check out that charter school to make sure, talk to who's leading it, find out where they're coming from, and see if they also have an agenda or policies that may allow for bullying or other or indoctrination as well. So that's something to be careful of.
It's a great point. Now, I know we've touched on some of the types of cases that you do handle, but share what some of the other types of cases that Pacific Justice handles or has been involved in that relate directly to parental rights.
Directly to parental rights.
Yeah.
There's so many. One is deal with homeschooling. Parents were challenged with regard to their rights to homeschool in a very important case a number of years ago. We at Pacific Justice stepped in to defend the homeschooling program, and hence the rights of parents to homeschool. We won in the appellate court. It was a fantastic victory. But now there's pending legislation as we speak in the state of California that would allow the fire marshal or social workers to randomly, without a warrant, go into homeschooling families' houses and inspect those houses to see if they are satisfactorily safe, and just really scrutinize them, and basically looking for grounds to be able to take the child, not just stop the homeschooling, but also take the child from the families. It makes homeschooling much, much, much more dangerous in the state of California, should this become law. So I strongly encourage parents out there in the state of California in particular to call and express their opposition to this legislation on our website, pji.org. There's a whole article about that with the title of the bill and everything else. I encourage parents to go to our website, get that information about the attack on homeschooling, and then on the bottom of the press release, that information, they'll see a phone number they can call to talk to their legislator and express their concerns. But that's a serious threat to homeschooling. In states like California, in Illinois, Washington, New York, where states are just overwhelmingly controlled and dominated by the teachers' unions and the politics of the teachers' union, this kind of legislation could become law. It could be very, very dangerous for freedoms and liberties of parents who choose to homeschool their kids. And I just want to point out that statistically, although homeschooling is not for everyone by any means, and it's very difficult, it's not an easy thing to do, but those children who do get an education through homeschooling statistically are by far better educated overall, have better careers, they advance faster in corporations in terms of management, and have a lower teenage pregnancy rate, lower suicide rate, lower drug abuse rate, less runaways, it's a fantastic thing to protect, and we at Pacific Justice Institute are very sensitive to the rights of homeschoolers all throughout the United States, and we defend them without charge all throughout the United States.
Yeah, so that's beautiful. And for those listening, there are similar statistics also as it relates to charter schools. And I know that just last year anyway, there was a huge push to try to stop charter schools and to try to take funding from charter schools. And there's similar statistics in regards to higher grades and less kids getting involved in crime, higher graduation rates, less suicide, less drug use. All of those things that goes to charter schools as well. And I thought it was just despicable to have an attack on charter schools as a whole that was unfounded and literally just making up stuff that I knew was not part of the real statistics. Very sad that that we had a sort of a political battle over that. We have another question that is coming in. This one reads, I have a question about opting out of standardized testing at the junior high school level. One parent who did this ended up with a truant officer at their door, and another said her son had to leave the grounds and could not study in the library. My biggest objection is that one of my child's teachers, in parentheses, who is also a dear friend, said that the reading passages on every test she had administered was at least 2 to 3 levels above the current grade level, and only those more advanced students are doing well. In her opinion, the tests are skewed and primarily pushed for school funding. Is your organization involved in or addressing this issue?
Yeah, they're talking about the Common Core assessment test.
That's what I believe, yes. And they're talking about opting out of, well, they're calling it the standardized test, but I think you're right, it's the Common Core.
Oh, yes, that's the Common Core standardized assessment test. This has been a real problem. We at Pacific Justice have been actively involved in this issue on a number of grounds. Number one, parents are entitled to opt their children out of these tests. That's their right under the law without being punished. So they can't have a child do like a 10-page essay instead of take the test. They can't punish the child and make things difficult for them or their family. And so parents, we defend parents like that. We put school districts on notice when they try to punish children like that. Public school teachers, they're the kind of, oftentimes they do this kind of low-life stuff. They very disrespectful to parents and families who choose to opt out, and they sometimes give candy and rewards to kids who take the test and not to kids who don't. That's illegal. They can't do that. They can't punish, and they can't also reward kids who or withhold a reward. The other thing that parents need to know is that they're entitled to adequate notice, not only of the standardized assessment test, but also of their right to opt their child out of this Common Core assessment test, which President Obama institutionalized throughout the United States. It's a horrific test, and it's a horrific education program that is dumbing down public school children even more versus private school children. It's a whole other topic. So we at Pacific Justice Institute have filed 2 lawsuits against school districts. One was against LA and another one, and we've prevailed. Because they did not give adequate notice to parents, clear notice of their right to opt their children out of the Common Core state standardized assessment test that children are taking in. And it's important that parents know their right because it's one of their few ways of expressing their disagreement with this new educational system, Common Core, where it really makes it more difficult for children to have the same level of education that they used to have before Common Core came out. And it also even makes it difficult, particularly elementary school level, for a lot of children to be able to progress because it's above their heads in some ways, and then it also cuts out most of the majority of the literature is removed from it, so children aren't reading as much, and then the math, of course, is dumbed down tremendously at the higher level. So that especially the high school level. So it's a real shame, and yet so parents, one way they can express their opposition is to opt their children out. If they have any problems, they should contact Pacific Justice Institute, and that's for the state assessment test. Otherwise, Common Core is what their children are going to get if their children are in their traditional public schools in most states in the country, with the exception of Texas and about a half a dozen other states that have decided to drop Common Core and provide a higher level of quality education.
Brad, I just want to really acknowledge everything that you're doing. Just keep up the good work. Again, for everybody out there, again, if you go to pji.org, some of the resources that are available, Reclaim Your School, opt-out forms, the 12 steps, if you're dealing with CPS. So, Brad, again, thank you so much. And again, for everybody out there, they're doing this at no charge. Okay, so if you want to get involved, if you're an attorney out there, if you want to get involved, if you want to donate, if there's some way that you want to help, again, go to pji.org. Check out their website there, and you can see the wonderful things they're doing. Brad, again, thank you so much for everything that you're doing out there.
Oh, and thank you, Alan, for all that you're doing. I appreciate your program and the opportunity to have the time to visit. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And for everybody out there, please be sure to put us on your calendar and tune in next Monday when our guest will be Kate Lund, author of Bounce, Help Your Child Build Resilience and Thrive in School, Sports, and Life. And if you get a chance, visit our archives of past shows at answersforthefamily.com. You can subscribe through iTunes or Stitcher. And I would love for you to go to the iTunes and leave a review. If you like what it is that you hear, leave a review. It tells us that we're doing the right thing. Or if it's a review that there's some things we should change, that'll help us too. So we appreciate it. For everybody out there, be good human beings, and be with us again next week on Answers for the Family.
You're listening to Answers for the Family with Alan Cardoza and Matt Polachek, only on LA Talk Radio.